to make this dress with flare at the bottom and then flounce at the neckline. So you might need about 3 yards or so, but the bottom of the dress you can use circle for it, or you can use a pleat. I'm going to be using pleat for mine because my fabric is not enough. So I've cut out what I'm using for the bottom. So basically, to get the length of the bottom of the dress, what you're going to do is just to measure your shoulder to the end of the dress, maybe below your knee, and then whatever you get, you're going to subtract your shoulder to waist from it. That's your half length from the full length, and then whatever you get is going to be the length of the bottom. And then you're going to add 1.5 inches to it, so that you can use 1 inch for folding the end, and then half an inch here for joining this top part to the top bodice. So I've cut out mine. I'm using about 2.5 yards of fabric. So the full 2.5 yards is what I have here, and then the length is, like I told you guys, what I calculated here. So I've set this one aside. We'll move over to the top part. So for the top part of this here, I've done this method several times on the channel, but I think people are still confused on how to use it. So I always say 12 inches. 12 inches is the total seam allowance I'm going to need for this hair, for the whole top. 6 inches for the top is the extra seam allowance for the front, and then 6 inches is the extra seam allowance for the back. It's someone was commenting and saying that it's too much, but just trust me, it adds up at the end of the video, at the end. So what you're going to do is your bust measurement, right? You're going to measure yourself round your bust. Whatever you get, I got 42 for my bust, and then you're going to add 12 inches to it. This 12 inches, after adding it, I got 54, right? I got 54 inches. That 54 inches is what I used to cut this out. That's the whole width of this fabric here. 54 inches divided by 2. That's half of this 54 is on this side, which is about 27. Is the length from this point to this point, and then the other one here is the other 27 from this point. So this 54 here, I divided it into 2 and then cut it out. So this is basically the width I'm using for this hair. And why you're using the bust measurement is because your bust is the widest part of your upper body, right? So you added 12 inches to your bust measurement, and then whatever you got, for me I got 54, I divided the 54 into 2, I got 27. So 27 is the width of this hair. So if I fold this 27 into 2 now, I'm going to have about, like, on fold, it's going to be like, I think 13.5 each and 13.5 each. So that is it for the measurement that I used to cut this out. So now, to get the length, right, we've talked about the width, the length. How you're going to get your length is just basically, you're going to place your tape. Remember how you normally do for your shoulder measurement, your normal bodies. So guys, like how you normally draw your normal bodies, right? How you normally draw your normal bodies, you see your shoulder slant and everything. So it's just like that. But remember, this is supposed to start halfway through, like it's supposed to start above your bust. So for me, I want mine to start at 7 inches. It depends on you where you want yours to start. Maybe 5 inches from your shoulder. So this here is just like your shoulder, right? See, normally your shoulder, your armhole, right? So if you put your fabric, so your shoulder is here, the neckline is here, the armhole is here. So what you're going to do is to place your tape, right? I'm just trying to show you guys how I got the length. So the length I'm working with here is supposed to be 17.5. That's my half length, shoulder to waist. And then I added 1.5 to it, so I have 18.5. So I want my top to start at somewhere at this 8 inches from my shoulder down. I want it lower. So that's why my tape is at this point here. So I've explained how I got this measurement. So basically, you're going to place your tape from the shoulder, and then you're going to figure out how much space you want before the top starts. So for me, my top is going to start at 7.5. And then whatever you get, you're going to add 1.5 to it. 1 inch to it, half an inch for joining this part here to the dress, to the bottom flare, and half an inch for joining this top part here together. So that's why, so for this you're going to add 1 inch to whatever you're working with. So now I'm going to move over to the waist part. So this part here is going to be my waist. This part is going to be the top part here. So for the waist, I'm going to measure my waist and divide it and add 12 inches to it before I divide it by 4. So guys, I'm just going to say this again. So remember, when you were calculating the bust, right, see how I wrote out the measurement here, because people keep mistaking this. So I'm going to go over it one more time, because I normally use this a lot on my channel, this particular method. So your bust measurement is what you're going to use to cut your bodice, because the bust is the widest part of your upper body, right? So you're going to use the bust measurement. For me is 42 plus 12 inches. This 12 inches is for your whole seam allowance that you're going to need at this top part. I'm still going to show you guys how I separated this 12 inches, but just calm down and go with the 12 inches for now. So the 12 inches plus the 42 is 54, right? I divided it by 4, I got 13.5. So 13.5 is the width of this fabric here. And then your waist measurement for me is 36 plus 12 inches equal to 48. Divided by 4 is 12. So that 12 is what I'm going to fix in here, right? I'm going to mark the 12 here, and then I'm going to just blend it in up to this top part here. Normally, when I'm working with, so I'm going to connect it this way. You see, I've marked it. Normally, sometimes when I use this method and I need to put armhole into this here, I normally go in by 3 inches and cut out like 3 by 3, and then that's my armhole. But for this, there's not going to be any armhole here, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. I'm trying to explain it better in this video, because each time I use this, I've used this a lot, and the next video I'm going to be making, I'm still going to use this method, and people keep asking me, why is it 12 inches? The 12 inches is too much. Guys, I've cut out the excess. This is just for shaping it here. So the next thing I'm going to do now, you see, I have 2 of these. One is my front and one is my back. I'm going to set out the back aside. So first you shape the waist out, and then you set out one piece aside. So I'm going to use this for my front. The next thing is to fold this into 2 here. This is going to be my the front panel. So you're going to fold it, and the width of this fold is going to be just your bust measure, your nipple to nipple measurement. So for me it's 8 divided by 2, that's 4, plus 1 is 5. So 5 inches is what I'm going to have on this fold here. So whatever your breast point is, you're going to divide it by 2 and then add 1 to it. So that's what I did here. So I got 5. So for me, I have 5 all over. So you're going to check, and the 5 fits in this fold. So the next thing you're going to do is to place back your tape the same way. So like how you know where your shoulder started. So for me, like I said before, it's 7.5. So you're going to mark from that 7.5 to your, so guys, like this again, I've placed it. So this is my shoulder, this is the like the armhole over again. So from that 7.5, the next thing you're going to measure is your shoulder to your breast point. So for me, that's 12 inches. I'm going to mark it here. And then the next thing is your shoulder to your below your bust, shoulder to under bust. So that's what I have here, 14. And then the next thing is your shoulder to your waist. So for me, that's 17.5. I'm going to mark that here. And remember, the mark that you're making is not on this part here. It's not on the folded part. It's on the part that joins to the fabric. It's on this part here. So this side, not on the fold, not on the center fold. So from this here now, on your shoulder to, so let's go down to your shoulder to waist, the last mark that you made, you're going to minus half an inch there, right? And then on your shoulder to under bust, you're going to minus about 0.75 there. And then on the shoulder to breast point, you not subtract anything. Then you just connect. You connect the lines together. So I've connected mine. And then the next thing you're going to do on this top part here, you're going to mark 1 inch. At the very top, you're going to mark 1 inch. And then you're going to just connect it here. So 1 inch here, nothing on the breast point line, 0.75 on the under bust line, half an inch here, and then you just connect each line. By the time you connect them, you see you get that bust shape, and then you're going to go ahead and cut it out. So guys, the next thing you're going to do on this inner one now, you're going to check how much measurement deep you want your V to be. So let's say you want about 9 inches for the V. So I'm going to mark 9 inches deep. That's from my shoulder to 9 inches is my deep V. So I'm going to connect it, and then I'm going to just cut it out, right? So you see, I've cut that out here. So I'm going to remove it. So on this armhole side, because this is going to be your armhole side, I'm also going to come down by 2 inches here, just so it will fall in perfectly. And then I'm going to connect it this way and cut it out. So guys, I've cut that one out now. So this is what it looks like. So using this same method now, I'm going to place this back again. So I brought back my back, the back pattern here. So I'm going to mark that 2 inches down. So I'm going to reduce the length of my back pattern by 2 inches. So I'm just going to fold it. So I've marked the 2 inches because you need to reduce it, because now the side of your front panel is shorter by 2 inches. So there's no way you're going to leave your front your back pattern to still be this long, because you're still going to join the two of them. The front and the back pattern. The front and the back pattern is going to meet by the side. So if they're going to meet by the side, the two of them supposed to be the same length. So I came that same 2 inches I removed from the side armhole of the front. I'm going to remove it from the back, but this time I'm going to extend it all the way to the center. So I'm just going to fold that here, that 2 inches, and cut it out. So guys, I've removed that 2 inches now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this open. So this is I'm going to split it open. And now I'm going to explain to you guys how that 12 inches works. So like I said before, 6 inches is, the 12 inches is divided into 2, right? 6 of it is for my front panel seam allowance. 6 of it is for the back panel seam allowance. This is how it works. 1 inch of it is for the, 1 inch here is going to fall in for my zip. And then another 1 inch here is going to fall in for my darting, right? Because I'm going to dart it all the way to the back here. And then the extra 1 inch here is going to fall in for my side seam allowance. So 1, 2, 3 is what? It's 3 inches that I've already used, right? So, but remember, it's for the 2 sides of the back. So one panel here is the one side of the back. One panel here is one side of the back. So the 3 of them together is going to give you 6 inches that you're using for your back seam allowance. Let me say it again. One of this here, your side seam, then one darting here, then one here, your center seam allowance, one here, the second center zip allowance, sorry. One here is the center back dart, one here is the side seam dart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of seam allowance that you need for the back. So we'll set this aside. Now, how I use the 6 inches for the front pattern. So this is your front pattern. Let me open it up again so you can see why. So guys, why I use 6 inches for the front, 1 inch for joining the side, right? 1 inch, half an inch here, So guys, this is it for the front. So 1 inch of joining the side, 1 inch of joining the 2 darts, 1 inch of joining the 2 darts, and then 1 inch here. So let me count it. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see, 1 inch is going to join these 2 sides together, right? You're going to use 1 inch to join it here. So that's going to be 1 inch of the side, and then 1 inch that is coming from the end of this one, coming from the end of this one. Another 1 inch is coming from the end here, and then the other side. So if you count it, all the seam allowances you have, because remember when you were cutting your dart, you used about, when you were cutting the dart, you used when you were cutting your nipple to nipple measurement, remember I said divide your breast point into 2 and add 1 inch to it, right? So that 1 inch that you added, it still counts in here. But when you go to sew, you're just going to use half an inch for the seam allowance here. You're not going to try to extend it so much, because remember you've already trimmed out some parts of this center pattern here. So some of that have 1 inch. It's not like it's fully 1 inch that you're using to join it together, because you've already chipped out some of it here. So when you go to join it, just use half an inch to join the side, the seam at the center. But when you go to join the side to the back, you're going to use fully 1 inch to join it. So that's it here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's why you use 6 inches for the back, 6 inches for the front, but in total it's 12 inches that you use when you're dividing it. I hope I've made it clear. So now the next step is just to cut out your lining. So I'm going to go back and cut out the exact lining that I'm using for this here. I'm going to go ahead and trace out the exact pattern I have here. I'm going to trace it out in lining. So guys, I've gone ahead and joined it. So basically you're going to join the 3 patterns of the front, and then join the 3 patterns of your lining that you traced, and then you're going to join it at the top part, right? You see where I joined it at the top part here, and then after that you iron it. So you see what it looks like here. This is where I joined it and then flipped it over. So you see the same thing for the sleeve. You join it, you see the joint part here from the inside, you see the seam here, and then you flip it over and then just give it a dart here. So the same thing is what I did. After that I joined it together. So you see the body is ready. If you want, you can go ahead and put in your sleeve while you are doing it so that your sleeve will be inside of the lining. But I like to put my sleeve outside so that in case if I need to adjust it, I can always put it back and adjust it. I like to attach it on top instead of putting it inside when you're sewing it. So after that, now we're going to go ahead, just go ahead and check that the waist is exactly your waist. If it's not, go ahead and taper it in a little bit more. And then if you're using circle for the bottom, or if you're using girder, or if you're using pleat, it depends on you. But for me, I'm going to be pleating mine for the bottom flay. So what basically, this is the pleat I'm using, just kissing pleat. You fold one. I've done it several times here, and then you fold the second one, you pin it down, you fold another one here, you fold the next one. So you're just going to go ahead, pleat it and keep it separately, and make sure that you adjust it to fit the waist of your dress. After that, you put everything together, you join the bottom to the top part. To cut the flounce and the neckline, so I'm going to be using satin for that. You can go ahead and use the same fabric that you use for the body of the cloth, but I'm just going to use this satin. If at the end I don't like it, I can always go back and change it up and use my main fabric for it. So the next thing I'm going to do is, so you're going to just fold your fabric into 4, right? So let me remove this pin so you guys can see. First I folded it into 2, just like how you normally cut your circle dress. So I folded it into 4 now. And then the next thing I did is, I don't want to remove the pin so that the fold will not, I won't lose all the folds I have here. And then as you can see, I went ahead and ironed it down so I can get this lines here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is just to mark about 3 inches. It depends on you. I'll still make a detailed tutorial on how to cut this flounce. And then I'm just going to mark 3 inches from this angle. You can use 4 inches if you want. So this is my center point here. So from this point, I made sure to mark 3 inches of length all the way around, right? So after that now, and how I determine the fold that I'm using here. So guys, the way I determined it is just by, if it's 5 inches or 4 inches that you want to use for your flounce, make sure that this, at least this length can contain like 3 times of that. So I want 5 inches, right? So I just made sure that this fold here would contain that 5 inches times 3, so that's 15. So it will fit in here, so it will also fit in here on this side here. And then remember, you also need about 3 inches to mark the center part here, or you can use 4 inches, it depends on you. So now that marked mine, so I'm going to remove all the pins now and open up this fabric. So guys, if I open it up now, you will see my 4 marks that I made, the 4 sides here, you see, to determine the center of this here. So you see, this is still the mark here. So one side, one side, one side here. So 4 lines. So I now know that this is my center. I'll go ahead and extend this 3 inches all the way around here. Also on this side too, right? This 3 inches is just for the beginning here, but I still know that I want my length to be about 5 inches, if not 5.5. That's the length I want for my flounce. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick one of these triangles. You see, one here, one here, one here, and then one here. It's best to use your iron so that you can mark these things. So the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm just going to mark about 1 inch. Choose any one of your choice, come in there by 1 inch there, and then the next one, you're going to just find the midway, right? So somewhere here will be midway of this one, just midway of this angle here. And then I'm going to use this one here. I'm going to come down 5. That now you can put in the exact amount you want to work with, right? So I want to work with 5 inches. So at this point here, I'm going to mark my 5 inches, which is here. And then I'm going to connect this line here. So if I put a straight line here, the 5 inches will fit in down here. So now I'm going to just connect this point here to this point, right? That's the whole purpose of this here, is just to determine the length I want to work with. So now that I've marked this here, all I have to do now is just to start using this next line here to mark my main measurement, which is the 5 inches, right? So I'm just going to go all the way around and start marking 5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and start marking it, right? So guys, you see, now that I've marked it, right, coming to this point now, when I get to this side now, I'll start using the new line. So all the way around, I was using this to determine my 5 inches distance, 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches. But getting to this point now, I'll just start from this line that I made here. So this is now my new line here. So I'm just going to keep on tracing from here now. So now, as you can see, I've entered into a second line. You see? So I'm just going to keep on tracing again. So guys, I've marked mine. As you can see, this is it all the way, and this is where mine stops. So right on this line here, this is as far as my 5 inches can go. So I'm going to stop here. You see, it doesn't fit in here anymore, so I'm going to just stop at this point. And from this point, you see, I made a straight line, and then I'm going to just start cutting it out. So you're going to start from the end here, and then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to start cutting. Right? So guys, you're just going to cut and just follow the line up till you get to the center. So guys, I've gone ahead and cut everything out. So this is the center that is left, so I'm going to dispose of this, and this is my flounce that I have now. If you're using like you can go ahead and cut lining for it if you want to, and then when you cut the lining, you're just going to join it at the bottom part here, and then you're going to join the lining. Like if you place the lining, you place the fabric and join it at the end, flip it inside out, iron it, but then you're going to use the top part here to attach to wherever you're using it for. So this one here is going around the shoulder of the dress. So you see everything I have here. That's why I made, it's better to have more than to have less. So that's why I said I used 3 times of that. So now that I have this here, I'm just going to go ahead. For me, I'm going to fold the end, and then I'm going to attach it to the dress. I'm going to be using, you see how tiny it is. I'm going to show you guys how to make a tiny strap like this. So about 1.5 inches what I have here. So I'm just going to fold it into 2 and make a stitch all the way halfway in between, right? Like in between here is where I'm going to make my stitch, and then I'm going to cut off the excess. So I've made my stitch, guys. So the next thing I have to do now is to cut off the excess that I have by the side here. So that's what I'm going to do now. So guys, I've gone ahead and cut it out. So you can see my stitch here. So I've cut out my excess. So now what you're going to do to flip this, because nothing can pass through this now, is to use your needle and thread, right? You can use even your hairpin. Just use your needle and thread and hold it at one end here. So I'm going to just like pass it through several times, and make sure that you double your thread so that it doesn't cut, right? So you're going to double it like several times. You can even use machine needle for this. Now you're going to use the end, not the sharp part. You're going to use this blunt end here. I'm going to pass it through this here. So you're just going to pass it through to the end. So now I've gotten to the end. I'm going to pull it out straight. So you gradually try to pull this out. Just keep pulling on it, and then you're going to be able to fold it out. With this method, you can make even the tiniest strap. There's this hook that they normally sell to do this, but if you don't have it, you can use this method to just flip it. So I'll just keep on pulling on the thread until it starts to flip in. So guys, I've done it now, so I'm pulling it out still. So you're just going to keep pulling it until you get to the end, right? And then when you get to the end, you have your complete needle and thread. Now you can cut it out and then go ahead and iron this strap. You can make your strap tinier than this, because if you look at the thumbnail, you find that her strap is very tiny. It's not something you can just sew. You have to make it this way so that you can be able to flip it in and inside out. So I'm just going to go ahead and iron this. And the length I'm using for my strap here, you're going to measure yourself from the top part of your chest to the back and figure out how much strap you need. So for me, I need about 16.5. So I'm going to use this here. That's including my seam allowance. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my strap. So guys, I didn't use up my whole flounce. You can, because see, this is what is left. I have a lot. It can even do for another dress. So I think instead of cutting yours 2 times, you can use it 3 times like I did. You can just use 2 times. So let me show you guys how I attached it. So this is it here. So basically, you see, I put in my sleeve here. So this is how I did it. So I took the flounce, I folded the ends, and then after folding the end, you see my dress was already done. The lining and everything was done. So what I did, you see, my lining and everything was done. If I remove this now, the neckline is done. So what I did is just to put this here. Before I put my zip, I just started from one side of the back, and then I sewed it in facing this way. So you see, I sewed it inside of it facing this way. And then when I got to this point, the peak of this part here, where the front part, you see the 2 sides of the bust, I put in my sleeve, and then I continued sewing all the way. And then I got to the darts, the center dart at the back, I put in the end of the sleeve, and then I sewed it all the way to the end. When I finished, you see, I sewed it facing this way, so that when I flip it all over, my sleeve comes out of it, and then it falls this way. You see, it falls this way. So it looks neat on the inside. So what you're going to do now is, this part that is remaining now, I'm just going, when I flip it over, I don't want to affect this stitch here, because I don't want this to fold. I don't want this to fold. I still want it to stand. So all I have to do is just to go ahead and just make a stitch all the way. Like, make a stitch all the way and hold it. You see, the way it is now, I'm just going to go ahead and just stitch it down this way all the way, so that when I flip it, it doesn't move up. Or if you want, you can still leave it this way. It doesn't matter, because once it's flapped on your body will hold this tight, and this will not flip in. It will just remain the way it is. So when I got to this side here, so what I did is, from the side, this is the side, right? Let me zip it so you can see. And then after putting in the flounce, I went ahead and put in my zip. You see how I folded my zip into it. So what I did for this side is that I 3.5 inches away from the armhole is where I stopped, right? Even for the front too, 3.5 distance from the side is where I stopped attaching this flounce. I just stopped, you see. I didn't attach anything. Then I left about 10 inches or 15 inches. It depends on you. You can measure how much or how slack you want it to be. Just take your tape and measure around how you want it to be. So this is what I want, because remember, the sleeve falls this way. The sleeve falls this way on the side. It's not like joined to the body. It falls freely. So I left this space here, and then what I'm going to do now is, the way it is now, you see how I was attaching it before from the inside. I'm just going to go ahead. If you want, you can just fold it this way. Just fold it once and stop. And double stitch it at the 2 ends so it doesn't lose. Or if you want, my method I'm going to use is just to use bias to finish it so that it will look clean. Because if I just fold it this way all the way around, if I just fold it like that, then maybe when the wind blows and it flips over, it will not look neat. So I'm just going to use bias to hold it together on the inside here. So you see, you're going to start from one side of the back. As you're sewing, when you get to the center dart at the back, you put in your sleeve, and then you keep on sewing. You see, you keep on sewing. This is where you're sewing, right? You put it this way, you keep on sewing, and then 3 inches or 3.5 before you get to the armhole, you stop, double stitch, skip about 10 of this here, and then skip 3.5 again on to the front, right? And then you keep sewing. When you get to the dart, the center dart of one side of the front, you put in the second sleeve. You keep sewing, So exactly like that until you get to the back, you go ahead, put in your zip. So now the only thing remaining for me is just to put in my bias on the sides of the sleeve to fold the top part, and that will be it. So look at the front now. So guys, like I said, you can also use the same fabric as your dress. If you want, you can use a different fabric. So I've not ironed this down, so I'm just going to put in the bias for the sleeve, finish it up, and then iron it down. So like I said before, if you want your bottom part to be exactly like the picture, you can go ahead and use a circle pattern for it. I've already made video on how to make a circle pattern, but for me I use pleats because my fabric is not enough. So that will be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Bye.